Baker Mayfield's downfall has to be one of the saddest in NFL history. Just 2 years ago, Baker was seen as the savior of the Cleveland Browns. Not only did he lead a crappy franchise to his first winning season in over a decade, he also helped Cleveland win their first playoff game since 1994. That's honestly crazy when you consider the fact that Baker wasn't even born at that time. But Baker made one of the worst decisions in his career when he decided to play through a partially torn labrum. And he played so poorly that Cleveland's ownership forgot what he did for them the year before. Cleveland entered into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and Baker would force his way out of Cleveland after hearing rumors that the owners were entertaining the thought of acquiring Deshaun Watson. From the outside looking in, it seemed that Baker being upset and wanting out was warranted, but Baker would soon find out that the grass is not always greener on the other side. After his initial trade request, Baker Mayfield would sit on the trade market for quite some time. No other NFL teams that needed a starting quarterback wanted to pay Baker the near $20 million he was due that year. Only the Seattle Seahawks and Carolina Panthers even expressed interest in the trade, and both teams at the time looked like they were headed for a full-scale rebuild. And the Seattle Seahawks were no longer interested after Cleveland expressed no interest in taking a hit for Baker's salary. So that left the Carolina Panthers, and that even would hit a standstill several times, but eventually the deal was done. Baker was going to Carolina for a conditional 4th/5th round pick. The Browns would pay $10 million of Baker's salary for that year, and the Panthers would pay $4.85 million. Now, you might say $10 million plus $4.85 million, that's just short of $15 million. What happened to the near $5 million that Baker should have had in that contract? Well, Baker was betting on himself, and he accepted the rest of the money as incentives, which would be heavily tied to the team's performance and whether he started or not. And Baker would soon find out that he probably won't be getting the rest of that money. Finally, Baker had what he wanted, but the old saying, "be careful what you wish for," would become known all too well to Baker. Carolina's situation was not ideal. Coach Matt Rule was on his last leg with the organization, and while the defense was solid, they weren't elite, and the O-line was one of the worst in the 2021 season. The only bright spots on the offense was Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. This team in Carolina was a far cry from what Baker had in Cleveland. Baker would beat out Sam Darnold for their starting job, and the season started off pretty good. But by week 5, one thing became clear. Baker is nothing more than a mid-level game manager, and while he wouldn't necessarily lose you football games, he wouldn't necessarily win them either. In my opinion, Baker is similar to Jimmy G. He's a quarterback that needs a good team with various weapons to succeed, which is not a bad thing, but most teams would rather draft a rookie that they could pay a rookie scale contract than pay Baker a veteran scale contract. And that is where the rubber meets the road. It's safe to say that Baker may have overplayed his hand and may have forced himself out of a good situation too soon.